What's up, guys? It's your boy, Dev1. You're watching another tutorial brought to you by theaudiobank.com. Today, we're going to be looking at Pro Tools. Let's dive right in. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to click on the Pro Tools icon. Now, I'm using Pro Tools 10. They're already up to Pro Tools Ultimate and Pro Tools whatever. They change the name whenever they feel like it. It was Pro Tools 2018, and now it's just this like small, medium, large. I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, with all that being said, I'm not trying to diminish Avid in the marketplace because they are still providing us with software that is technically considered the industry standard. It's in the majority of music studios worldwide that do serious recording and post work. Simply because it's been around forever, since it was Sound Tools, but it was owned by DigiDesign at one point. I'm going to create a blank session. So let's look. Right now, I don't want my internet interfering with anything. So let's take a look at Pro Tools here. We have some options, okay? I use Wave. You can use AIF if you like. Whatever you choose. It doesn't really make much of a difference. The bit depth, 24-bit, 32-bit float. I always go with 32-bit float because it gives you a bit more headroom, and this is important when it comes to the recording. You want space in the mix, especially when you want to play with the master channel. Sample rate, 96 kilohertz. Now, for sake of education, I don't want to get too in-depth in this video about the science of sound. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make another video that goes into sample rate and bit depth, where I'm going to have diagrams that are behind what I'm saying. And I think that'll be much more helpful in educating those that aren't sure about it. I use 96 kilohertz. That's 96,000 samples a second. It gives me more clarity and depth in my mix. The days of CD to me are gone. Some people still use physical CDs and physical mediums. Some people much prefer it, actually. So I've seen the market swing both ways when it comes to physical. But as far as recording digitally, I always want to record in the highest possible bit rate and sample rate. And I know what you're probably thinking is, well, that's not the highest sample rate. I could record in 192K. But it will take up a lot of space on my computer, and most plugins don't even reach that high, so 96 is fine for me. I'm happy with the quality that it gives me. The I/O settings are based on what you have plugged in. I have a Symphony I/O, and it's reading that right now. So let's just create that blank session. Now, we want to create and go into our folders. In this case, I'm going to go into sessions because that's an SSD. I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to call this Intro to Pro Tools. That should do it. And now it just created a session for us. To set up your audio interface, you want to go to your Setup Playback Engine. And if it's not selected, select it from the list. And then once you select it, select your hardware buffer size. In this case, it's at 1024. And then your host processors and your CPU limit, your delay compensation. And if you have a disk playback cache and you're caching it to RAM, you could decide that. I just have mine set to normal. Now, it's always helpful when you're getting to know your DAW to go through all of your file menus and see what you can do. Something I like to do, I like to go inside of Setup, go to Preferences here, and I like to tweak some of these preferences. So in here, you could change from category to category and manufacturer. In this case, I'm keeping mine a category. It's much simpler this way for me. You could set default EQs and dynamics. Here's something important. If you have it, under your TCE settings and processing, this is your time compression expansion plugin. It's set to time shift. Now I want this set to Serato Pitch and Time Pro. If you have this plugin, This is one of the best stretching algorithms, and we keep it there. Your elastic audio settings, polyphonic. If you're looking to get a separate transport or a big counter, you can grab those. You can resize them. You can put it on pretty much any screen that you want. You can change this to bars if you want, minutes, seconds. I stick to bars and beats. Your transport controls if you need a floating one. Let's just say you have an iPad as a secondary screen. You can actually put this on there and control this from the booth if you're by yourself, which is very helpful. If you're like me and you like to see your lanes extra colorful, to separate your tracks, you could open up your color palette and you can click here and then push up your saturation. You have a choice to push up your brightness or not. I personally like it somewhere in the middle. And you could set this for clips and tracks. And that takes care of that. Let's take a look at something called the workspace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Window, and I'm going to show my workspace. The shortcut would be Alt and semicolon. So this is your workspace. This is a list of your drives. Now I have all these drives set up for record, and this is incorrect. So we have to fix this. I don't want my computer, my main drive, my system drive, set up on record. I want it set up as transfer. That's it. Transfer. Okay. Playback. This one to record. This one to record. And I could leave that one on record for now, but really, I don't think I have any sessions in there anyway, so I'm just going to do playback on that one. And we do the same thing with video. Match it. So basically what happens is Pro Tools records files and it puts them all over your drive. It fragments your drives. Now, this is why you'd want to fix your drives to say what you want them to do in your workspace. So where they are and what you want each one to do. And that's why we have these set to transfer, and the only recording drives are going to be the drives that we're recording onto. And that is how to set up Pro Tools. So we're on our main screen. We have this task manager. I usually just drag it to another screen or minimize it. In this case, I'll just drag it off the screen. And we have a blank screen here. So what are we going to do? They have these tabs on the left and right. Okay. And these tabs open up windows for us. That will be helpful. So I'm going to open those up. This one is going to have the clips or the sounds, and it's not 100% necessary all the time to go into it. At least for me, it's not. I pay more attention to the tracks. Let's just say that you have some audio files and you want to import them into Pro Tools. There's several ways of doing it. I'm going to show you what I believe is the easiest way. Okay, so we have our audio and we're going to drag it into the tracks window right here. Now they should populate. Takes a second to render. Everyone's computer is different. Let's give this a listen. Sounds good. All right, cool. So that's working. I'll probably get rid of the tracks where nothing is happening. Not really sure if anything's happening in these, so it's a good thing if you blow up the track by just dragging here, and you can pretty much see if anything's happening. And if not, you could also increase the gain and see if anything pops up, but to me it's nothing. It's not necessary. So, and that's called clip-based gain right there. So on that one, at least we know. Let's get rid of this one. You just right-click on the track here and just hit delete and say delete, and that's gone. And same thing with this one. I increase the gain, nothing's there, so goodbye. And this leaves us with our audio tracks. So it's very helpful if you know the BPM of the tracks that you're trying to drag in. And if you don't, you can manually look. But for time's sake, I'm going to look, and it is 90.17. There's no other way I would have known that. 90.17. So what we want to do is we want to click here on our tempo, which is this red thing right here. And it's 90.17. Okay? And we're going to keep it in the resolution of a quarter note, which is right here. And now we should be perfectly on the grid. And if I insert a click track, it should be lined up perfectly. Or very, very close to perfectly, because some things export with a little bit of sound in the beginning, a little buffer. So let's take a look. So we're going to go to track. We're going to create a click track. Nice. It's down here, though. So I want to drag it all the way up here for now. And let's listen. That's perfect. So I'm going to mute my click track. I don't really need my click track anymore, unless there's a silent part and an artist needs it when they're recording. So I just keep it on deck. So that's how to import audio, and it's easy as that to get started. Let's just say we want to cut something out. We could easily, very easily, and if you like to blow them up, you could just drag underneath here, and you can find your spots that you want, and you could use this smart tool. And basically at different parts of the waveform, it's going to change for you. And I kind of like that. So you can find where you need to highlight if you go into the middle. If you need to drag it around, you just move it down, and you can move it right or left. To undo, you hit Command-Z. So let's just say I wanted to take out, let's look in the resolution. The grid resolution is up here. I'm in a 16th note. Let's look at it by a quarter note, and that way we can go in and we could take out pieces if we wanted to, like there. But the problem is there's grid modes. So there's slip, and that's if you want to go off the grid. In this case, I want to go on the grid, so I'm going to click there for grid, and I'm going to highlight this section. I could even, while I'm going, drag all the way down, and this way I can hit delete and check this out. And I just created an open space. So it's really simple to edit. To drag around, you just move. Well, this is a fade, so you could drag your fades in very simply. You can also use the bracket tool, and the bracket tool, when you see that, can trim. I call it the bracket tool. It's probably the trim tool. But you can just move it wherever you want it to be, which is excellent. And then this is a crossfade area. So if you pull between here, it would crossfade the audio files. So if there's a click or something happening right in the center, this is the way to take clicks and pops out of your music. We could also do that in another smaller video, just with an example, so I could show you. I tend to ramble on a lot. Feel free to make fun of me in the comments. All right, so I'm zooming by holding Option, Command. I'm on a Mac. Option, Command, and scrolling my mouse wheel up and down, and that elongates or contracts the size of the audio tracks. Well, actually, it's just Option and scroll. And if you hit Shift, Option, Control, it also explodes the view of the gain on the track. So if you really need to see all that, you can do that. I'm just going to have it normal for the most part. And this is good. I don't need to see it huge. Doesn't really matter. You have your pencil tool up here, which means that you can go into, say, for example, volume mode here instead of waveform view. And just be careful where you click, because it will leave a mark there in that section. So when I click that, you notice the volume change right there. It went up 0.2. I definitely don't want that. So what I like to do instead of starting with the pencil is I will highlight a section and then just move it up. But if I want to smooth that out, I could do this. I can do freehand, I could do parabolic, I could do S-curves. So for example, if I do a freehand, I could draw my volume swell. And that's cool because then that was cool. It was like a swell, like boom, hit you right in the face, right in that empty spot. I like that. So you could do that. You could draw in volume automation. You can highlight it with this tool and just drag it up or down with the bracket tool and or trim tool, whatever you want to call it. They just call it, standard. Oh, this is when you right click on here, it gives you other tools as well. Time compression expansion, that's your TCE. So if I wanted to stretch something out, if I wanted to scrub through the track like I'm listening to it, or loop, you have all those here. You could do that all in this menu. I stick to standard most of the time. Right here you have the same thing as I did before with the zooming in control form. And these are your different zoom saves, the different states of zoom. So this is not going to work because I don't have a track or a project big enough to play with it right now. All right. This zooms in on your highlighted area. This is tab to transient. And what tab to transient does is if you're not sure, if you have a song that you're importing for somebody and the beginning of their beat is not lining up to the grid for effects purposes later on, then you turn on tab to transient and you go to the beginning of the waveform. Let's zoom in all the way. Go right to the beginning. And what it does is it gives you the ability, when you put it into tab, to the first transient. So I do that, and then boom, it's at that first transient. Your insertion follows playback. So your insert point, right? It's going to follow the playback. Right? So every time I stop it, see, but if I take this off and I have this here, and I hit start, and I stop, and I go back to it, it plays it back from where I put my insertion. This is a helpful tool. If this changes, you know it's right here on your toolbar. So we're going to create a new track by hitting Shift Command N or Shift Control N on PC. And we are going to load in a stereo instrument track. And I'm going to click here. If you don't see your inserts and your I/O, you could find them here. So if you wanted to add more inserts, then you can. Inserts are basically effects. Imagine you have a beautiful top-of-the-line studio with a bunch of rack gear, a bunch of external rack-mounted gear. This gear will have an input, something that you could plug into it to manipulate the sound of whatever it is you're trying to manipulate. So you want to make sure that your outputs are routed to that input, and you also want to make sure that the output of the affected audio is routed back to your input on your console or audio interface. So this happens virtually. For example, if I wanted to put a reverb on, I can easily find a reverb. Let's find a snare. Safe to say this one's a snare. And I want to put some reverb on it. Now I could throw a reverb on the total track, or I could do a send. I like doing sends better. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So I'm going to find, let's use Waves H reverb. And I'm going to load up some preset. We could do large tiled room. How about it? And we're getting 100% of the wet. So what's happening is it's not preserving the original signal. It's modifying it totally. You'll notice as I pull back the wet knob that it will sound more natural and real. But you will also notice that the decibel level decreased. Now, a dry wet knob is like doing a send. So you don't have to do a send if you don't want to. But I personally like doing it that way because I might want to route multiple things to that reverb instead of putting a bunch of reverbs on a bunch of tracks that's going to take up a lot of CPU. So sends will save your CPU if you use them properly. So I'm going to turn off my inserts F through J because I don't need them. I'd rather the screen real estate, and I'm going to put up sends instead. So let's send that drum, and I'm going to put it on a bus. Now they have pre-made ones. I'm going to make my own. So I'm going to go to bus 7 and 8 because this is a stereo track. So I'm sending to bus 7 and 8. But bus 7 and 8 doesn't exist. There's no channel for it. So I'm going to Shift Command N to create a new channel. And I'm going to do a stereo aux input track. And here you go. Now I can send this signal here and put my reverb here. But maybe I don't want to send this here like this. Maybe I just want to send the entire thing. Let's take a look. Let's put our reverb here. There's so many different ways to do this. Now, H reverb, this isn't one of my favorite reverbs, I'm not going to lie. Let's put on a snare one. Although I do like plates. I don't think we're going to find good drum ones right here. But complexa verb sounds pretty interesting. Let's listen to that. Okay. So we need to set up the input on this channel to bus 7 and 8. And now we need to send it. Because it's not sending. Now the problem is that I have it soloed. Now that I have it unsoloed, you'll hear this track as well. So before, no reverb, but if I want one snare to ring out, let's see if I could put it back here just for more drama. Okay. Right here. So if we want that snare to ring out, I probably don't want that one. This is where I would go into, you could either change the grid or you can like make the resolution greater, or you could just put it into slip mode and kind of slip it back. So I'd put it into grid mode, it's fine. And I want this last one to echo out. So I'm going to pull this send down. All right, we want that one to like, so. And then we could throw it in whenever we want. But let's just say that you wanted to do it and you want to play around with it. I love doing this. You go into touch mode. And now when you're in touch mode, anything that you move is going to be recorded as automation. So let's record some automation. I'm going to click here and I'm going to automate that send. All right, now I'm going to take it off of touch mode and I'm going to go to read mode and watch what happens. Dope. So that gives more depth to our mix and gives us a new element, a new feel, a new vibe. I love doing this for vocal reverbs. I love doing it for delays. There's so much that can be done with send, so do not underestimate the power of the send. The send is almighty inside of any DAW. It can save your CPU. It can give you really cool effects. I usually have, my goodness, like 10 different sends set up in my personal sessions when I load them up, my templates. A reverb, one, a delay, one, actually 2 reverbs, 2 delays, effects. I have chorus. There's so many different channel strips that I have set up. Parallel compression is big on sends as well, like sending your master to an aux track that you compress so that you could really bring more definition to your mix. I'll show you that in another video, but I'm just giving you different examples of why you would want to use sends in your process. So now that we have this done, I want to put in some MIDI. I already have a MIDI track that I put in here, and I want to create an instrument. So I'm going to go to my insert here. I'm going to go to instrument, and we're going to find a decent one that we could mess around with. Let's see. let's load up Mini Grand. Good old Mini Grand. Now when it loads up, you're going to see it do that. Now I'm just going to play something real quick and mess around and see what I can come up with the beat that's playing. Cool, let's do something. So let's go back. You have a transport up here. You could even expand it by right-clicking in here, and you could do all and expanded transport. So there's your expanded transport. I say all because I have the screen real estate. And you could hit record and then play, or you could just hit the number 3 while you're record enabled. Make sure that you click over here to record enable, okay? You have solo, you have mute, so just hit record enable for now. Make sure it's blinking red, and we can start. It's going to give us 4 clicks. Apparently, I don't have a count in. Why I don't have a count in, I'm not sure, because it must have been off. So now it's on. That's this guy up here. And it's 2 bars, it looks like, but let's see what happens. So I'm going to turn on my click track. It's going to count me in. It looks like 2 bars. I could change this to 1. Okay. And we're going to hit 3. Here we go. All right, so I screwed that one up badly. Let's fix that. I'm going to go into my MIDI, my hand tool, double click, and it brings up our MIDI mode here. And we want to match the top keys, what we played on top with what's on the bottom. And I screwed up there. So I'm just going to take note that we are on, looks like C sharp here. So I'm going to make sure that my top note is on C sharp. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to hold Option. And notice that the mode and grid, it screwed up where I could put it, right? It's not perfectly lining up anymore with this. How do we do that? What we do is we want to do relative grid. And I switched it by clicking on it. And I'm going to now hit Option. And it's duplicating. So I click, and I'm dragging, and it's relatively staying on the grid. And that way it maintains the position. So we could play it like this now. And it'll sound a little bit better if I take out that click track. If I turn it up. And it's not in perfect tune because I don't think the sample was in perfect tune. So that's something that I would shift or pitch shift later. So our MIDI's there. I could shrink this window size here. And I'm going to drop the audio back down to pretty much nothing. And I might want to send that to that reverb too. Let's bus it to 7 and 8. And you can see what it's doing. I probably don't want to do it that much because I don't even want it to be that loud. So I'm just going to drop it all the way down here. And it's right on my drop. I don't even like it. It's fine. I'm just going to mute it. You know how to record software instruments to it now. That's the most important thing. So if you wanted to, if you needed to fix an 808 or something, if the song needed one, then you could throw an 808 in there and play it in with MIDI. So we have our MIDI in there, and you know, you can record vocals easily by Shift Command N, creating a new track. I do mono audio track. Boom. You're going to hear me all out of phase in a second. And on this input, there I am. You can control your volume here. You have input monitoring, you have solo, mute. So for example, you could have this be the only thing playing right here. And because it's not recording, it's not gonna you're not gonna hear my voice like that on it. Mute button is right there, cuts it out. Let's just record a crappy vocal real quick. All right. Now, I don't usually duplicate. We can if we want. I just usually create new. It doesn't matter. Everyone has a different workflow. So you can copy. I don't want to copy the active playlist because that's the audio. So I'm going to take that out. And I'm going to record another vocal. We're going to click on this one, shut it off, and go for it. Timing was off, and if you want to fix that, you can go to slip, pull it back. Now listen to him. Yeah, yeah. Now time for my smart tool. So I can pull this in, and the one I said kind of weird, different than the other one, but it's okay because now I could fade it and find my spot. So I'm going to pull this in further. I'm going to fade it. And then I'm going to use the hand to move it back. And now it should be better. Yeah. And I'm going to duplicate this one more time. And I'm going to try to hit the high note here. So don't laugh at me. Luckily, I can't hear you. We turn the count off. Here we go. Yeah. Now I can drag this over here and move this here. We'll listen together. Yeah. Cool. So I would EQ these vocals and do something with them, but I could bust them all. Or I could just send the output straight to another send if I want to, just so that they're affected on that channel only. It's really up to you how you want to do it. So let's do an example of that. I'm going to change my output on these 3 tracks to bus 9 and 10. I'm going to create a new stereo aux track. And now all of that audio is going to funnel here. So I changed my input. So now anything that's going through these 3 tracks here is going to go to bus 9 and 10. Which is awesome because now I can affect all of them and do some pretty cool things. I'm going to go to an insert here. Let's find a plugin that we want. Maybe some kind of EQ. Okay, so this is an M filter. And there's presets. We can click here. Simple equalization, and that sounds pretty sweet. You have this one right here. You have vocal presence, hi-fi. That's pretty cool right there. You have all different types of stuff. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. That sounds pretty cool. Let's try this. Not so cool. Yeah. 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 That was cool, but the volume is really loud, so I'm going to pull it down. Yeah. I'm going to throw another real EQ on there. Let's go to Fab Filter. I love Fab Filter. Yeah. 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 That's an interesting sound. And now we could send this to a reverb. We could probably send it to this one. All right, so I'm going to send up a send. We actually just drag this send here. And now. Yeah. Yeah. And when I drag that send, it dragged the automation with it. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to take that send off. And it will say, do you want to lose the automation? I'm going to say, hell yeah, I want to lose the automation. I didn't want that there in the first place. So I'm going to click here. And I'm going to say bus 7 and 8. And now I can control how much reverb I want. Yeah. Right? So let's put it up a little bit. Yeah. A little bit more. Yeah. And I'm going to put my overall volume down so it's a background element. Yeah. To compensate for the fact that it's pulled all the way down, I'm going to have to make sure my send is all the way up. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of want even more top end. It's crazy. And I want to pull out the bottom end. It's one cool thing about this EQ. Yeah. And that sounds much better. And I can pull the volume down a little bit more. Yeah. And that's how you do a quick vocal harmony. You could also align them. There's other tools to do that, like vocal line. I could do that in a whole nother video. That is a different entity in and of itself. So I'm just cleaning this up here. You have your nudge tool up here. You have your grid. Like I said, you could change the grid where you need to make cuts and edits. This is definitely helpful for when you have drum parts and you need to slice and dice. There's tools like strip silence. You have to find all these different options. They're up here. Okay. So you can really go through and find different tools, like here's strip silence, for example. So when you find the setting, you can see where it's going to cut. It's cool that it shows you that. And you could have a pad at the end as well. Okay, you don't have to have a pad. You see it kind of gives you a little buffer there. And then the start one is the same thing. But then you say strip, and then boom, it's out. It's gone. So then that little piece is gone. You do the same thing here and say boom, see you later, Jack. Same thing here. But the problem is that fade part is in there. That's why it doesn't do it on this track. So it's all good. We don't even need to. I'm just kind of showing you what it does. So if you have spaces in between your drums, see that with the kicks. I usually wait for the end to do all this, to be honest with you. But we're going to go here, and then you go to Edit, Strip Silence, which is Command U. So let's do it with Command U. Boom. And then you can see that the drums are there. So I could say strip and then boom, all the drums are there. So there you go, and I've already cleaned up so much. You don't have to do this with everything. I kind of like it like this, to be honest with you. I like being able to go in and cut audio when I want to, but some people like it organized like this. It's really up to you. You can keep it however you want. Organization to me is key. It's good to have all of these labeled. Pretty sure that the long names of the tracks do, but you could always rename them. You can click on them and rename and call it whatever you want. So you could see that this is like that. So I'm not going to do all that right now. However, we can create groups here. Let's just say we wanted all the drums to be in a group. So let's click all of the drums. And let's find them first, actually. I think that's all I have for the drums. So these 4 tracks, I have them soloed right now. I don't want to take that aux input, so don't drag that. So I'm going to create a new group. I'm going to click here. I'm going to say new group, and we're going to call it drums. Okay. We want it on mix and edit. That's fine. It already has them selected here, and we are going to say OK. And now anything that I do to any one of these drums while this group is highlighted, it's going to affect all of them. So if I click, let's just say the volume. Let's go to the volume here. When I do one, you see all of the other ones are affected. You can see them all moving right now. So I'm going to put them back at 0. So you saw that when it's grouped and I hit mute, it cut out. You could even automate the mutes. So if you wanted to do mute sections without having to cut audio, all of that's available to you. The sky's the limit. It's all on your imagination and your creativity. So don't hold back. That is how to group something. Real quick, let's just say you wanted to take your vocals and align them a little bit better. What we could do is we could turn on Elastic Audio and we could utilize the groups and click all. Just remember to turn this off when you're done and go underneath the track and pull down, and it'll make everything blow up. Turn off all, turn off drums, and we're going to go to monophonic, and monophonic. Well, we really don't need it on all 3, just on these 2, and drag them out. So I have it on monophonic on these 2. I'm going to change this to warp. And what we could do from here, quite remarkably, is we can click and drag this out. So we can match exactly where they begin and end. Let's see how it sounds. So I'm going to activate this marker here so that it doesn't stretch that part. And oops. From there, It's just not working with me today. Okay, so now I'm going to drag this out. That's good. I can actually drag the ending back in. There we go. Okay, so what we're dealing with, what we're experiencing, interestingly, is the pitch going out now, and we could actually fix that. But first, I'm going to say none and commit to it. I'm going to put elastic back on, and we are going to go to back to monophonic, and now let's edit elastic pitch. We're going to go to our clip, elastic properties. And right here, you could actually pitch shift. So you basically have elastic pitch. So let's go up. Let's see if it'll allow us to do this. I think we have to be in ticks to do this. Here you go. So we changed it to ticks mode. And that's right here in case you were wondering. So now that we have that set up, you could set up some quick selections up here, like locations. You have right here your elastic audio settings. Now this is like Flex in Logic or Warp in Ableton. And right now the algorithm's set to polyphonic. You could change that. But let's say we want to find something. So I'm going to go into my folder here. I am going to find some type of loop, maybe like a shaker. Now, if we click on any one of these, what's going to happen is, if we click here, it's going to generate us a preview of it. Right? So we can go through a whole lot of these. This is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some type of shaker. So in order for me to find that, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to Pro Tools Loops. And I'm going to say, let's say hip hop, percussion, shaker. And we're going to find a shaker. Now let's remember, our tempo right now is set to 90.17. And I want this to fit with that, but it's not necessarily recorded at that. It's recorded at 80, I believe. Now with this on, this automatically warps it. And this is in polyphonic. We could do rhythmic and see if it sounds better. Okay, so again, let's do it with polyphonic. Now let's do it rhythmic. So rhythmic's no good. Let's go back to polyphonic. Okay, so let's use this one. This one's cool. So just like before, I'm just going to drag it here onto the tracks window. And that way, it gives me a new track. Let's say we have to shift this out a little bit. Maybe the rhythm's a little off. Then we could use elastic audio to do that. So I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to make sure that my elastic audio is on, which it is. It's this right here where it says polyphonic. And instead of waveform, we're going to look at warp. And under warp, we're going to see our warp markers. And we could do cool things with this. We could drag it out. We could warp it to be bigger than what it was. And right now, I'm not really interested in completely doing that because I don't have it in grid mode. So I'm going to drag it in grid mode. And this way, we go from... And I could drag it out if that's something that you wanted to do. But let's just say you want to take this and quantize it. So let's make sure our grid's on a 16th note. That helps. We're going to go to Options, Event, Quantize. And now we pick the elastic audio events, right? 16th note. You could add swing on it if you want to. There's different kinds of swing. There's MPC swing. You can go in here. You go to MPC style groove. So we can go in here and do like MPC. Let's do like a 53%. Why not? And let's just say apply and watch what happens. Boom. All the markers snap. And now when we listen back, a little bit tighter than before. And that's what we're looking for. And I understand that this isn't the greatest example, but I'm trying my best here. So now that we have our timing locked in, we could duplicate this. Command D. And it's going to duplicate with the markers. And let's just say we're happy with this as it is. What we could do is we could turn off and disable elastic audio. Now it's going to ask if we want to commit our changes. And we're going to say, sure, why not? So it creates a new audio file for us. But I'm not happy with that. So it switches it back. And now that that's back on, we have to go back to warp mode. And we can see where our warp markers are. And let's just say we want to listen back. So in the beginning, I didn't really like the way it sounded. So let's edit the warp markers. So if you hold down Shift, you'll be able to individually change a section. And if we go into slip or relative grid, then we can, this is relative grid, but let's go to slip. We could slip this a little bit. And that right there is the issue. So we figured it out. If we drag this out, it still sounds bad. But we see that this right here, it's not really in the middle. So let's change our grid resolution again. Let's go to 32nd. Now that we can see it, let's grab this. Let's put it back on our grid. And let's move this over to that. And that should solve that. Let's listen. So it's this part right here too in the beginning. We need to make that shorter. So what do we do in this case? Let's blow this up first. We just click with the hand tool, and it inserts a new warp marker. And you could also take them out by holding Option and clicking on it, and it'll take it out. But I want it in there because it's dragging a little early in the beginning. So now that we have our marker in there, we're going to use our slip tool on that, and we're going to move it up there and give it a listen. I think this is a little crazy too. So if we click in here, it's getting closer. I think this just needs to be much tighter. Okay, I see something else that's going on here too. This is off the grid right here. So let's move that in. Okay, I saw one other thing here happening. This part right here is not on the grid, and this is really where the action's happening. So I'm going to put a warp marker right on that point. If I can get there. Beautiful. Let's delete this one. It warps back to where it was. Although there is a warp marker there for a reason, but let's try it here. And I click off, I click back, and I want it back on grid because I want this to snap back on to the grid. And now, let's give this a listen, see what it sounds like. Okay, so same issue right here. We have to fix the timing on this. It's getting better. The thing is, though, we want this peak to be aligned with here. So I'm going to double click here and try to get this peak back. Let's take it off grid. Got to take it off grid to do this. It's starting to sound better. And this one would move over a little. And there's another thing you could do as well. If there's another one that you like this one over here, we could actually just take that bar and copy it over. Let's see what we have here. I'm going to take this off, go to, let's go to a quarter note. Definitely 16th, sorry. And now that we have it at a 16th, what we could do, let's just commit to this. Say none, commit. Boom, made me a new file, right? Cleaner version. And I like the last one right before the end. Actually, the first one sounds good. And now we're having some audio problems. And that's Pro Tools for you in a nutshell. If you're having problems with your audio, it's always good to check your playback engine under setup and make sure that your sample rate is high enough for your DAW to handle. So I'm going to turn it up a little bit more. That should solve our problem. Actually, I don't even want to copy and change anything. I think it's good like that. If we wanted to do any other changes with warping, click here to access the available algorithms and use the one that suits what you're trying to do. So if it is a piano or a guitar or multiple voices, use polyphonic. If it's a single voice or a lead guitar, you could use monophonic. If it's drums, you could use vari-speed and rhythmic. Try for the best sonic result and stick with it. And then once you've got it where you want it to be, click on none, render it, and you're done. If you want to apply an audio effect onto a vocal after the fact and process it with it, then very simply highlight the audio, go to your audio suite, and let's just say reverb real quick. We'll pick a simple deverb. And let's just say you want that. Now I'm going to extend this highlighted area out because I want the reverb to extend past the region. And I'm going to put in a preset. Let's just do long plate. And I'm going to hit render. And now it's processed. And you can do this with any effect. And that takes care of that. Bouncing is when you have your track and you want to export it out. So I'm going to create my points just like so. I'm going to pull it back here. Now let's say that you wanted to put a limiter on it to make sure that you're not clipping, because clipping is when all of your audio exceeds. We don't even know if it's clipping, so we need to do that. So first thing I'm going to do before I do anything, Shift Command End, and I'm going to do a stereo master track or master fader. This is going to show us what we have going on. And we're definitely clipping. Look at that. I'm not surprised. So I'm going to go to Dynamics, and I'm going to go to one that I like called Maxim. And here she is. We are also going to make sure that our output ceiling is at -0.3. Because on some hi-fi systems, -0.3 is your red line. Good thing to know. You learn something new every day. Now when I listen back, watch. No more clipping. It's all together. Even though it's clipping down here, it's not clipping on the master, and it's getting pushed out, and it sounds fine. So I'm going to bounce this out now. I'm going to go to File, Bounce to Disk. Okay. And I'm going to pick a wave, stereo interleaved format, 32-bit float, that's fine. My output source is normal, and you could send it to iTunes if you want. I'm not going to. I'm just going to convert after bounce, and then we are going to type in the name of it. I'm just going to call it Intro to Pro Tools. And this is going to bounce in real time. So now that it's done bouncing down to disk, we can do whatever we want with it. We can export it. We can put it to a CD. You could export it to iCloud, or you could export it to Dropbox or whatever cloud service that you have. And that way you could listen to it on the go on all of your devices. That's at least what I do. I also send them out, so you could send them through WeTransfer, whatever it is you do, just to get an approval on the track, or you want to get some feedback. You could also upload it online to whatever site that you have your music on, which I highly encourage. Get yourself out there, get yourself heard. Don't forget to tune in. Got a lot of new updates, a lot of things coming up soon. Have been jam-packed with my schedule, and I'm currently updating this computer from an 8-core to a 12-core Mac Pro. I'll post a video about that too, just in case you guys are interested in doing something similar. All right, if you have any questions, comments, please leave them below, and hopefully this tutorial helped you out. I will be going more in depth with Pro Tools features. It has plenty more to offer. So there's going to be a whole series of videos on Pro Tools and the many things that it does. But in the meantime, I'm doing all these intro videos and need to make sure that everybody's covered. Like I said, stay tuned. Questions, comments, leave them below. Please subscribe. And if you're feeling the content, if it helps you out, hit that like button. We need that. We need promotion online. So please support. Also, if you're in need of any audio gear or computer upgrades, go to theaudiobank.com, click on the shop, make sure that you register for the site, and I'll also be throwing in free sound packs and sample packs in the future. I have a couple in the works right now. They'll be coming shortly. Register now, be first in line, and holler at your boy. It's Dev1. This is theaudiobank.com. Peace.